Okay, apparently atheism is dead. I didn't know this. I I didn't know this because atheism is just a lack of belief. It's taking taking the God claims and saying I don't believe you. Not oh, okay. Well, let's find out. Let's see exactly what this guy's talking about. It's possible the guy's dead. It's possible that atheism is dead, but I don't know. So we'll find out. Let's see.
Um, I want to talk today about atheism. I just dropped a YouTube short on that topic, and I've dropped longer videos on that a number of months ago. And I think it's an interesting topic because atheism promotes itself as being like very intellectual and promotes itself as having the answers.
I thought I was rubber and you were glue.
No.
Hello.
No. We don't claim to have any answers. As far as I know. As far as I know. I'm just some civilian YouTube dude. I don't know. But there's a YouTuber that's doing a video on this video. And he might be able to help me out here. So, let's see.
Everyone, I'm Professor Plank. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Today we're going to be checking out another cartheist out to criticize atheism. Seriously, what is it with religious apologists and flat earthers and live streaming from their cars? Why is this such a prevalent thing? I mean, even if they are parked and not posing a danger to themselves and others by recording while driving, do you seriously not have a better time and place to be pontificating on your philosophical musings?
Yeah, I don't get why that's a thing either. Is it popular to do something like that? I don't know. Whatever. Okay, we needed first of all Plank, I think he said his name was. But his channel, let's see, right there, that's his channel. So if you want to go see him, that's his channel, check him out. I might subscribe to him, I don't know. We'll see.
Or is it that your car is the only place besides the bathroom where you can have some privacy, and when you spout such nonsense around your friends and family, they tend to ridicule you to no end, and so car filming is just your best option? Well, whatever the reason, today's cartheist is Daniel Courier from the YouTube channel iApologia, and he's going to be explaining to us his notion of why atheism is dead. Never mind the fact that there's more non-believers, both globally and in the U.S., than there ever has been at any point in recorded history. Never mind that the more science advances, the more things that were thought unexplainable mysteries created by God are found to be actually explainable. And never mind the fact that modern-day Christianity, the religious worldview that Daniel here espouses, has been hijacked by fascistic nationalists who are about the least Christ-like people on the planet, which is fueling the exodus of the once faithful into what would now be considered the disillusioned nuns, NONES, and points more towards the death of Christianity than the death of atheism. But hey, at this point, Christianity is playing a bit of desperate defense, and their main goal is retention of the people that they do.
There's no actual proof of it. Christianity, it's... Okay. Okay, the growth of Christianity, I think I can explain a good portion of why Christianity grew so much. in 6480, there was a fire in Rome, the Great Fire of Rome, I think it was called, where nearly Rome burnt down. Rome, I think 2/3 of Rome fucking caught fire and just burnt to the ground. Just could have been an accident, could have been whatever. I mean, but what happened out of that is Emperor Nero. Actually, I'm not gonna get into the details. I'm not like that. He persecuted Christians to an extent that they can be seen, that they were seen probably as models for their faith. And that could give it a little boost. I'm sure it did. Along with other threats of death, stuff like that. I mean, convert or die, be Christian or we're gonna kill you. Stuff like that. Yeah. Which things that Christians came up with, by the way, actually. I'm gonna throw you in a dungeon and torture that shit out of you. Because, what, you don't believe in God? You don't have the same belief I do? Okay.
Still have their hooks into. And what better way to keep the butts in the pews than by insisting that their ideological interlocutors, which apologists have decided are not other religions or faith practices, but atheism, is in its death throes. And if you have to fib or fudge the numbers or lie through your teeth in order to make that point, hey, what's the harm? After all, it's all in service to the religion and God herself, right? So let's let Daniel have his say and hear his take on the death of atheism. But before we get to that, if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. Check out my social media, including my Patreon, Twitter, and Blue Sky, all linked in the description. And of course, like the video, pop in a comment. All that goes a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm. That magnificent niche, meeting momentous matters methodically, maximizing moments for marvelous measurable merits, and meeting marvelous material manifestations while maligning magical mandates and misleading mantras may keep my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video.
Did he write that down? Did he write that down? I'm sure he wrote that down. That's a lot to memorize. That is a lot to memorize. At first, I'm pretty sure he wrote it down at first, honestly. He probably has it memorized now, but he probably wrote it down at first, most likely.
I just dropped a YouTube short on that topic, and I've dropped longer videos on that a number of months ago. And I think it's an interesting topic because atheism promotes itself as being very intellectual and promotes itself as having the answers.
No, we don't. We don't have the answers. We have the most reliable process in which to obtain those answers, being science. We don't have all the answers. We can just figure out what those answers are. He has a better answer, but whatever.
Well, no, atheism doesn't do that. I was going to let the claim of atheism promoting itself as being intellectual slide. While that is not a standard aspect of any atheist argument or atheist philosophers or common atheistic thought, there is no doubt a bit of a streak of hubris within the atheist community. Of course, this is a knife that cuts both ways, as there's an equal or greater level of hubris from the theistic community towards non-believers, and frankly, significantly more ridicule of the atheistic position as stupid and belief in God to be the true intellectual position. But I don't want to descend into whataboutism. The point remains that there can be a tendency among the atheist community to view ourselves as the more intellectual position when it comes to the God claim. But I have to completely object to the notion that atheism claims to have all the answers. Atheism doesn't claim to have any answers. Not believing in God is nothing more than a rejection of theistic claims towards having the answers to any and all of life questions. Claims that, for all of the theistic rhetoric, tend to...
Hold on, let's see what we can do with the volume. It's okay, but I can do better. Here we go.
boil down to nothing more than God did it. But atheism does not propose any answers in place of the theistic ones that are being rejected. Now, there are any number of secular attempts at discovering answers to a whole host of questions, and secular reasoning and investigation are generally accepted, as they tend to require evidence to be accepted and can't fall back on, well, this is what my holy book says, so it must be true. So we, as a society, tend to use secular means to do things like, for instance, investigate crimes, forensics, psychological profiling, deductive reasoning, and criminal interrogations.
Which is all science. It's all folded into the science thing. Asking questions.
Among other things, are given far more weight in the courtroom than psychic visions from people claiming God told them that the defendant did it.
Spectral evidence. That's what that's called. Evidence from the supernatural evidence. I think it's called spectral evidence. It was.
Similarly, science relies on empirical evidence, not prophecy or myth or claims of the supernatural. Secular moral philosophies attempt to reach moral and ethical truth, if such a thing is even possible, without appealing to any deity, but instead beholden to the inherent nature of humanity or of the universe itself. Now, while all these kinds of approaches to all these various topics may be secular, they are not inherently atheistic. Because, as it turns out, most faithful believers in God also agree with and enact these kinds of secular investigations, such as the vast majority of modern Christians accepting the reality of evolution, but just believing that evolution is directed by God. And you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who thinks that the justice system should be convicting people based on their faith, lest it would be seeing the U.S. condemning all foreign-born non-Christians to slavery, as the Bible clearly says that you may take your slaves from the heathens around you.
Yep.
No, secular means of discovery are not synonymous with atheism. An atheist need not agree with secular discoveries either. An atheist could reject the scientific idea of evolution and insist that the diversity of life on this planet is the result of magic spells being cast by interdimensional wizards, or that the universe itself was belched into existence from eighth-dimensional unicorns. The point is that atheism doesn't claim to have any answers that are inherent to atheism itself. All atheism does is reject the unproven assertions of religions that claim that there is a God who's done anything.
However, I don't think atheism in general and materialistic mindset can explain the real world. For example, oftentimes you ask like very simple questions like, explain to me, give me a good response why a godless world makes much more sense than a world that contains God. And people respond back like, oh, that doesn't make sense. That argument doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, that doesn't. Okay.
No. I don't want to answer that. Only the Christian has to answer. Only the theist has to answer.
So you just did a common bait and switch that so many apologists are guilty of. You used atheism and materialism in the same breath as if they were synonyms. They aren't. While it may be true by the very nature of what materialists believe, that the material or physical universe is all that there is, makes them ostensibly all atheists, not all atheists are materialists. For instance, Buddhists are not materialists, though they would generally be considered an atheistic religion. Same with any other non-theistic religion that promotes some level of spiritualism without appealing to any specific deity. But to your larger question, how does a godless universe make more sense than one created by a god? You say that atheists never want to answer that, and that atheists insist that only the Christian has to answer that. Are you kidding me? We answer that crap all the time.
I don't answer it right now. It makes more sense because we see natural processes happen all the time. This world is nothing but natural processes. We don't have some supernatural mechanism to do anything. It's all natural. No God required. It just developed. That's how things... Yeah.
I mean, the problem of evil is the most consistent and commonly used answer to that specific challenge. And while it doesn't necessarily work against all God concepts, such as a god or pantheon of gods who want to create evil for various reasons, or who lack the power to remove all evil from the world, but since you're promoting Christianity, the problem of evil works flawlessly against the Christian God concept. That concept being an entity that is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent, all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. There can be no justification, no excuse for the existence of such evil, or otherwise known in this argument as suffering, that exists in the world if there were truly a God who had the power to stop it without causing any unwanted consequences, the knowledge to know exactly how to stop it without causing unwanted consequences, and the benevolent desire to stop it from happening. Similar to the problem of evil is also the argument in the Epicurean trilemma, first posited by the Greek philosopher Epicurus in the 3rd century BCE. It goes like this. Is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he's not omnipotent. Is he able, but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? So you say we atheists never answer this question? We've been answering it at least since the 3rd century BCE. Everything that all the various religions that have existed over the last several millennia have told us was the unexplainable purview of a god or gods, and all quite outside our ability to explain or even comprehend, have all ended up being explained. What the sun is, why it moves across the sky, where it goes at night, what the moon is, where it came from, where it goes when we can no longer see it. Why do we get sick? Why do we heal from injuries? Why do some people heal better than others, the young versus the old, for example? Why do we die? Why do some people have skin that's a different color from others? Why do so many people speak different languages? What are the stars? Why are there plants? Why are there animals? Why is it hot sometimes of the year and cold at others?
We take a lot of these differences. A good amount of these differences and use them as excuses for us to hate each other. Sorry, that's not what this is about. Never mind. Back to atheism is dead. Whatever.
Why is there sadness and suffering? And why was Nickelback ever popular? All the unexplainable mysteries of the divine we were told over and over again, and told over and over again that to try and discover such things was not our place and was an affront to the gods to attempt to learn their secrets. After all, that's why we speak so many different languages. It was to confuse those who, in their hubris, attempted to build a tower to heaven to reach God. Except, whoopsie, turns out linguistic drift and the evolution of language was pretty simple to understand once we started looking into it. Linguistic drift refers to the gradual, subtle, and often unconscious changes that occur in language over time, leading to variations in pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. It's a natural phenomenon driven by factors like geographical separation, social interaction, and cognitive biases where small deviations accumulate across generations. Given enough time and distance from people speaking other languages, language changes to the point of becoming entirely different from one another.
Yep.
Similarly, everything that I mentioned earlier, all of those questions that we were told by the religious not to ask because it was the express purview of God, once thought the supernatural machinations of some God being, were found to be totally explainable and not at all what the myths and various faiths would have had us believe. The sun is not a god riding a chariot of fire across the sky. The stars are not holes poked in the sackcloth of heaven that covers the dome over a flat earth. Illnesses are not curses or blights on humanity from a vengeful God. And humans did not originate from dirt and rib in the Garden of Eden.
No, we did not.
A godless universe makes sense because everything we have ever learned or discovered about our universe makes significantly more sense as a natural occurrence. Everything we have ever observed or investigated does exactly what we would expect it to do if, at the bottom, there is no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. We've explained this dozens of ways, countless times. It's not that atheists don't answer this, it's just that you theists don't like our explanation. Of which,
I really don't care.
Or when you ask a question like, okay, tell me how that give me a naturalistic, solid, evidential naturalistic explanation that actually is cogent and makes sense for the origin of life. And there's really no answer. The only answer that's given is, we will find it out sometime. Maybe not now, but eventually.
Some chemical reactions led to other more complex chemical reactions that ended up where you ended up with a cell. That's it. That's all you need. A cell. And then that cell would do what it does. Well, mitochondria kind of got weird with that. Mitochondria was a virus that infected a cell and starting to work with it. Symbiotically.
Eventually we will find some sort of answer for the origin of life. So I don't think that really works.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
again, it looks like someone hasn't been paying attention. Yet another question that you insist atheists never answer when we answer that crap all the time. Perhaps where you're getting tripped up is that while theists, particularly Christians, like to insist that they know where life came from, vis-a-vis the Garden of Eden and creationism and all that, the secular, scientific, and naturalistic stance is honest enough to start off admitting that we don't know with 100% certainty how life originated. Because we simply don't have much in the way of investigatable evidence from 4 billion years ago when the first life would have started on Earth. Certainly not the 6,000 years ago that some creationists like to talk about. But we have various hypotheses as to how it would have happened. Hypotheses like, for instance, panspermia, that life on Earth originated from microorganisms or their chemical precursors arriving from outer space via meteoroids, comets, or cosmic dust. Or hydrothermal vent theory, that life originated in deep-sea
Which actually, the building blocks for life have been found on distant asteroids. So that is more possible. That makes it possible that it can happen that way. Panspermia.
hydrothermal vents, These vents provided a continuous supply of chemical energy and minerals, creating stable environments where complex chemical reactions could occur, leading to the formation of organic molecules and eventually primitive cells. But most commonly, the predominant hypothesis is that of abiogenesis, which suggests that the early Earth had a reducing atmosphere, which was low in free oxygen, and was rich in inorganic compounds like methane, ammonia, and water vapor. Energy sources like lightning and UV radiation would have provided the spark for these compounds to react and form organic molecules like amino acids and sugars, etc., which then accumulated in the oceans. Over time, these molecules would have combined to form more complex polymers and eventually self-replicating systems. The Miller-Urey experiment in 1953 provided early experimental support by demonstrating the spontaneous formation of amino acids under simulated early Earth conditions. More recent experiments by NASA have found that all of the key building blocks for both RNA and DNA can form naturally in early Earth environments. Now, I know these kinds of explanations for the beginning of life, which then require additional study into evolution and natural selection over the preceding 4 billion years in order to turn such simple organisms into all the rich and diverse life that we have on the planet today, well, it's a lot to wrap one's head around. And it's much easier to just fall back on God did it and the Garden of Eden creation story. But at the risk of running back into that atheistic hubris and claiming to be the more intellectual stance,
I don't really care.
There is some sort of being outside of the universe. For number one, think of the biblical record of, let's say, we think about the topics of, let's say, prophecy. The prophecies of Jesus from Isaiah, or even the picture prophecies of the Old Testament, such as the Moses and Joshua prophecy, the picture prophecy of Jesus and the old law. We can think about Joshua, that's a picture of Jesus. We can think about the snake in the wilderness. We can think about Isaac.
Okay, biblical prophecies. So the primary reason why biblical prophecies are not convincing evidence for the existence of the Christian God is that, well, they all come from the Bible. And as I always say, the Bible is not now, nor has it ever been, a reliable text for anything, including any of the so-called prophecies that it contains, and for a variety of reasons. A significant scholarly criticism is that some prophecies were actually written after the events they purportedly predicted. This is known as Vaticinium ex eventu, prophecy from the event. For instance, critics argue that portions of the book of Daniel, which describe historical events with remarkable accuracy, were actually written during or after the Hellenistic period, not centuries earlier as traditionally believed. Also, many biblical prophecies are argued to be broad or vague enough to be applied to multiple situations or interpreted in various ways. For example, predictions of general destruction, famines, or wars can find fulfillment in numerous historical events because such events are common throughout history. Different biblical passages or different interpretations of the same passage can lead to contradictory understandings of what the prophecy entails, making it difficult to ascertain a clear, universally accepted fulfillment. This is particularly noted in debates surrounding messianic prophecies in the Old Testament and their alleged fulfillment in Jesus, with some scholars...
Actually, I think I'm gonna put the link to this video in the description. Actually, yeah, I probably should. Hold on. Wait a minute while we go. Link. Paste it. Save it. Okay, it should be in the description now.
Others arguing that many were not originally interpreted as messianic by Jewish tradition before Christians' readings. And since you specifically mentioned Joshua prophecies multiple times, let's dwell on that for a minute. The prophetic elements in Joshua often revolve around God's promises to Abraham and Moses regarding the land of Canaan. The fulfillment of these promises is what the book details. If someone finds this convincing, it's because they believe the historical narrative accurately reflects God's intervention and the literal fulfillment of those promises. When instead it can be viewed as a historical account of a people migrating and warring for territory, similar to many other ancient conquests that were just given a divine flourish by later biblical authors. Also, the book of Joshua describes the rapid and seemingly complete conquest of Canaan. It says things like, they left no survivors, and the Canaanites were utterly destroyed. But this seems to conflict with other biblical accounts such as in Judges, which describes ongoing struggles with Canaanite peoples in the same region for centuries. And archaeological evidence, which suggests a more complex, gradual, and less total Israelite settlement in the land of Canaan. And I mean, there are lots of supposed prophecies in the Bible, and we could go tit for tat back and forth through all of them. But overall, finding biblical prophecies convincing as evidence for God only works if A, you view the Bible as a reliable text delivering trustworthy information about anything. I do not. B, you view those prophecies as accurately recorded when it claims they were made, and their fulfillment also accurately reported as they occurred. I do not. And C, you insist that the only possible explanation for those prophecies' fulfillment, if indeed they did happen, is the existence of the Christian God. I do not. I view the Bible as largely or entirely fabricated BS. I view the prophecies within it as equally fabricated as the rest of it, and any actual predictions that seem to have come true that it might contain can be more easily explained by embellishment, coincidence, or the aforementioned Vaticinium ex eventu, making up the prophecy after the event already occurred and then predating the prophecy.
Or seeing how the world is and knowing what exactly is gonna happen. It's been done. I mean, we can see the word. Extrapolate what could happen in the future, and whatever. Some of those things happen, some don't. It just, they don't. Yeah, I don't believe in prophecies either.
Prophecy to make it seem as though it was made before the event.
But near-death experiences, like for example, some of the great examples of these include like someone passes away on the table in a hospital, and they get revived, and they've been out for like, let's say, three hours or 30 minutes or something like that. And they come back and they're like, hey, there is a shoe on top of the roof. And someone goes up on top of the roof and they find a shoe up there. So how did that person actually know there's a shoe on top of the roof?
Okay, Daniel has moved past biblical prophecies and now wants to give near-death experiences as a reason to believe in God. I wonder if he's going to continue to get more and more ridiculous as we go. Is the next one going to be demonic possession and talking about the Conjuring movies as evidence? But let's take a look at this story he gave us about the NDE where the patient came back and claimed that there was a shoe on the roof, and wow, there was one. Alright, so after looking into it, this story comes from a woman named Kimberly Clark Sharp, who is the founder of the Seattle International Association of Near-Death Studies. an organization that advocates for the idea of life after death. Interesting, that. And as it turns out, Kimberly Clark Sharp is not the person who actually experienced this NDE, where they saw a shoe on the roof. Sharp claimed that this experience happened to a woman only known as Maria. Maria was a heart attack victim who was being treated at the hospital where Kimberly Clark Sharp worked. Sharp wrote an article published in the summer 2007 edition of the Journal of Near-Death Studies titled "The Other Shoe Drops: Commentary on Does Paranormal Perception Occur in Near-Death Experiences?" In her article, Sharp recounted that Maria observed a number of scenes during her resuscitation. Sharp called it an out-of-body experience while flatlining. Now, who is this Maria? Unknown. There's no direct testimony from the reported patient. Ergo, this entire story is hearsay. Hearsay that was recounted years.
And why would someone wake up from a near-death experience and just volunteer information like that? It doesn't make sense why someone would, unless, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Years after it supposedly happened, by a woman who has a little bit of a vested interest in manufacturing support for the existence of supernatural or spiritual near-death experiences, given that, she runs a foundation dedicated to promoting near-death experiences as supernatural or spiritual. Fucking hell. This is flimsy even for an apologist, Daniel. I mean, I imagine you didn't bother to do your due diligence and actually look into this story, but instead you just heard it somewhere, like on a Discovery Institute podcast where it was heavily featured, and just regurgitated it into this video as if it were confirmed, verified fact. It isn't. Do better, dude.
Honestly, I'm embarrassed for you.
And when I'm watching the machines within the cell, I know how machines are designed. I design them every day. I design machines every day. And I'm a biologist as well. And I know that the hard work and the amount of emotional and intelligence it takes to create a machine. And not only to create a machine, but to create a machine that works well. There might be just even one or two little things you mess up on a machine. So let's say you take a vehicle. These are something that we all are familiar with, your car. You can have a car, you design it, it's designed, and you're like, okay.
God. Wow. Okay. I don't know if I would have left this in, honestly, but maybe I would have. But he rambles.
How's it working? It works really well. Okay, great. But what if one little part of it breaks?
I really tried to keep that clip as short as I could. Daniel just could not get a point across.
Yeah.
He just meandered and meandered,
Yes.
and normally I wouldn't focus on the poor speaking ability of the...
It's okay. I'm good with it. I think he was pointing to what this guy's gonna bring up. Irreducible complexity. But that's already been debunked also.
apologist I'm responding to, but this guy hires himself out as a speaker for events. I've been noticing things that have irritated me in his speech, like his tendency to upspeak throughout his entire video, which is where your voice goes up at the end of every sentence, as if you're asking a question, when you're actually making a declarative statement. I've been ignoring it, but the dam broke with this vocal waffling and inability to make a succinct point. Write a script if you're not good off the cuff. Anyway, to the point he was trying to make, he was trying to say that all biology is molecular machines, and the larger point is just the argument from design vis-a-vis complexity. That our biology is too complex to be the result of natural processes, and therefore we must be designed. But it really takes him over 3 minutes to make that point. And it's a bad point, including his car analogy, which just makes this a derivative of the watchmaker argument. But it's even worse than that, because while he's still using the complexity to insist upon intelligent design, He also threw in a new bit about how if there's one little piece that fails, the whole thing stops working, and then tries to equate that to his idea of molecular machines and biology. Except, that isn't the way biology works. This is exactly why comparing a biological organism to a machine like a car is a bad analogy. In an actual machine, sure, you can say one part failing can cause the entire machine to stop working. But in an organism, take things like mutations, which is when cells divide, their DNA is copied, and sometimes mistakes happen during the copying process, leading to a new incorrect sequence. This is a common source of spontaneous mutations. This would be something failing to work properly in our DNA, the basic molecule that makes up our entire genetic code. Except that we know that the vast majority of mutations that occur are what are called neutral mutations. Neutral mutations are changes in DNA sequences that are neither beneficial or detrimental to the ability of an organism to survive and reproduce. And some estimates put the neutral mutations in our DNA at 70% or even more of all the mutations that occur. Now, tell me, if 70% of the parts in your car fail to work properly, is your car still going to function? Certainly not. It'd probably fall to pieces right there on the highway. But for the molecular machines that are our genetic code, we literally don't even notice it.
Is that all you've got?
And yeah, that pretty much is all that Daniel has for us today. He started off with the oh-so-common misunderstanding of what atheism is, and insisting that atheism claims to provide answers but then doesn't, when that's exactly backwards. Atheism has nothing more than a mere rejection of theistic claims.
I think I'm done with this video. Claiming that atheism is dead, but I don't know. It's not. Not at all. And religion, oh God. I don't know why we hold on to these religions things. I don't get it. I really don't, because religion actually calls for the death of people. Some of the religions I know do. Christianity definitely does. Islam does also. Any religion, anything that relies on God or a God concept, there are always enemies or non-believers or people that don't believe the religion that everybody else believes. So, what do you do with those people? It's okay. I mean, so what? You don't believe it? It's just live and let live. No. These religions tell you that you should kill that person instead of just whatever. It's okay. Secular, whatever, dude. It's religion kills more than atheism does. Religious people are literally killed because of their religion. Literally. I mean, yeah. You were whatever. Fuck. This video's gone on so too far anyway. thank you for watching. And I'll see you next time.